I'm 𝗬𝗏𝗄𝗏𝗄, a recognized thought leader in the Microsoft Dynamics community and a Microsoft MVP for business applications. Welcome to the Get Your Newbie podcast. Keep listening to learn how we work with frustrated Business Central and NAV users who struggle to use their system and find the answers that they need. We teach them to truly understand how the system can support their business processes to make immediate and lasting improvements. As a result, they get more done in less time, make better business decisions, and even love their system.
This session is Warehousing Unleashed, Mastering the Latest Release Features, presented by Kim Congleton. I am Kim Congleton. I am the co-owner and COO of NewView Strategies. I added this slide because I kind of feel like this is a good representation of what warehousing has felt like for the last 20 years inside of 𝗬𝗶𝗂𝗿 and NAV. I feel like, maybe the warehousing functionality was kind of old and tired, like the first truck, right? It's kind of the same thing over and over. And then, we're kind of getting a little rusty, a little behind the times in some of that functionality. And I feel like the last couple of releases have added a little bit more and more exciting functionality in the warehouse area, more than what we've had before. I'm going to take a look at a couple of things that are new in this release. And then I'm also going to kind of recap what's happened over the last couple of releases, because I think combined together, they really are allowing us to do some things with our clients that we haven't had the opportunity to do before. I think there was, when you looked at functionality, what somebody was doing inside their warehouse, it really was it was either an all or nothing. It was hard to hit those people in that kind of middle area where they need a mix of basic warehousing and kind of a mix of the directed full-blown warehousing. So let's take a look at a couple of things. There's not a ton of stuff in this release, but there's kind of some nice enhancements to some of the stuff they've already done. One of them, and it's a small thing, but I really like this, especially from the perspective of creating Power BI reports, is this new feature under warehouse setup. It's a new toggle that you can turn on that will copy the item description to the warehouse entries. And this is kind of huge because it was a little frustrating. You're like building a Power BI report, you're looking at your data set, you're like, oh, I have everything in the warehouse entries I need except for the item description. And so now with this, it will actually write the item description to those lines. One of the things that you do want to make sure, though, that you do is that you go back and populate the old lines with descriptions as well. So then you just have to use that warehouse entry table as your data set. You don't have to kind of bring in some extra things. The other thing is, the other new feature is assigning lot and package number. So it's going to allow you to assign to existing lines package numbers. It's not going to overwrite. So it's kind of nice. You can kind of fill in some of those missing gaps. Not a huge change, but, little tiny enhancements. The other thing that's kind of big, and I kind of have a love-hate relationship with this one, because it depends on what you're trying to do in the warehouse. This one is the lot and serial number is now at the line level on documents. So picks, putaways, item journals. For item journals, it's kind of optional, but this does kind of create some complexities. If you're dealing with lots, if you're in food or, manufacturing and you've got lot and serial number requirements on those picks, for example, if you have unique lots that you need to break up that pick quantity by, it's really hard to do that manually. It's one of those things where you're going to need some sort of handheld device to do that. And let's take a look at a couple of the screens that affects. One of them is the item tracking lines. Here you can see on the item journal template for the item journal, there is a choice now when you go into the item journal and you go into your item journal batches to define them. You can, over to the far right there, you can see the item tracking on lines, and you can toggle that on and off. And what that will do is you can actually enter the lot number on the line and not have to go into the item tracking lines and define it there. The next one that's really, really exciting, and I can't remember exactly what release this one came in. This one is huge. Nothing to handle has been the bane of my existence for the last 20 years, especially with directed pick and put away. This one can be super frustrating for users. It's probably the one that they call the most about. And you kind of just have to have a process for how you would go through and figure out what really was the issue. Now there's a screen where you can actually, it just kind of walks you through all the things that you would do manually to figure out what that error was. So you can see here, you can see the sales order, you can see it created a pick, but you can also see in red, we have some issues with the quantities. And then over on the right, it kind of walks you through all of the different values that you would look at. Is it pickable? Is it in a pickable bin? Is it in the warehouse that I'm trying to create the sales order for? Is it already on a shipment? Is it already reserved? So all of those things, which is really, really nice. This one is probably one that will have the biggest impact on helping users solve their own problem. The other changes that are kind of exciting to me is that on the location card, there's a lot of changes relating to allowing you to use some of that functionality that before was only available in directed pick and put away and not really available to kind of some of those grayer areas where you're turning on, you have more than bin mandatory. And you might just need like a put away template. Like I need a little bit of direction when I'm putting things away, but I'm not ready for everything to be turned on. So one of the things that you'll notice is that there's kind of some of the functionality has been broken up that was under warehouse before. So now it's kind of broken up into areas. You'll notice the titles like purchase, sales, service, and transfer. So that functionality is related to that. But then you'll notice some new areas like down here under production, where you can choose what level of warehouse handling you want to have. So even if I turn on require pick, I can go down and under production, if I don't want to require a pick for consumption or to consumption or from output, I can actually have no warehouse handling there. This is pretty helpful when somebody is kind of their production and manufacturing process is not really set and they're kind of easing their way into manufacturing. So they might not be ready to be that strict in, having the system tell them what to bring to the production area. So this kind of gives you a little bit of flexibility. It allows you to kind of ease them into getting used to using the system. And then going into a second phase where you actually start enforcing some of the better functionality that kind of puts some controls in place. The other thing, again, that's very exciting is that you can use now some of the settings under bin policy that were not available before as well. So like special equipment, if you require a forklift to go get something, or maybe it's also the warehouse, it will also check the warehouse class code. So you can also kind of have some restrictions on where certain things go in the warehouse. So that's super helpful. The one I am excited about, though, is the put away bin policy and the put away template. So now this is really exciting to me because I've had a lot of clients where they don't really need that much help on the picking and the shipping. That's kind of set, but it's really when things come in the door, they have some issues with trying to decide where things go. And with that being, their main problem, it gets kind of hard to have that discussion like, well, if you need directed put away, but you really don't need directed pick, we've got to turn it all on because that's the only way we're going to be able to use like the put away templates and really give you that direction. So that's where some of this comes into play and makes it a lot easier to say, well, now we can use that without having to turn everything on. This well, we already kind of talked about this, but this kind of shows you, it's a good example on whether you want to pick or not pick. So you can see here our choices. So we can have no warehouse handling. Warehouse pick is optional. Inventory pick movement. So really gives you some nice choices. And that's in the production area, the assembly area, or even under project now. So that's allows us to be a lot more flexible in the processes that we design for people. This one as well is really a nice feature. I would like to see it for the shipment as well, but right now it's only on the receipt. So that over receiving code, I've used this a lot with a couple of customers. It's going to be available on documents like to put away the receipt, depending on what level of warehouse you have turned on. But it's going to allow you to say, if I ordered 100 pieces from my vendor, and they send me 110, and I have an over receipt code that allows me to receive up to like 20% over or 30% over, I'm going to be able to receive that order, not have to go in and adjust quantities. The system will actually do that for me because I can put it in a field, and then the functionality behind the scenes will go update that quantity, and there's nothing, there's no reason you don't have to go back and clean it up or do anything like that. And it's got minimal setup, so you can define your over receipt codes in a table. You can then assign them to an item or vendor. So there is kind of a little bit of hierarchy there. So, obviously if you assign it to the vendor, it's going to apply to any POs for that vendor. If it's assigned at the item, then if the vendor has, maybe you set a 10% on the vendor, but then there's one item that, it's not real exact, especially depending on what type of product it is. It's common to have, you're always going to get like anywhere between 10 to 20% shipped extra. And then, one of the things that we kind of look at with our clients is, what's one of these new features that might be a quick win? It's a good way to kind of get them looking at the newest release, looking at the new functionality, and what's something that might bring them value. So one of the ones I just use as an example here is when the over receipt code came out. It's an easy, quick one. It's an easy hey, there's a new feature, there's a new function, and I think it would be really helpful for you to use. And you just kind of, it's kind of something that you can do really quick. Just do a quick meeting, show them how to do it, define your over receipt codes, you apply it to items. You can create some purchase orders and test it, and then train the users and implement it. I mean, this is all something that people can do in a couple hours, in a day, a couple days, and you've got a nice quick win that they can start using immediately and see value from.
I have a question for you. How do you feel about the total amount of the new improvements in this release as compared to other releases? For warehousing in particular?
Well, I do. There's not a ton in this release, but I think it's building on the previous releases. I think we've talked about this before. I was actually kind of there's nothing new in warehousing. I don't want to train on it anymore. It's not exciting. It's kind of boring. And then as soon as I said that, all of a sudden there started to be these new features coming into warehousing. So I would say I've definitely had, gotten more of the excitement around it. I like where they're going with some of it. Some of it, it's a little, I'm not sure of yet if it's going to be as great as I think it is. But yeah, I really do like where they're going with it. So it is nice to see each time that we're actually getting some things coming in that are new.
And to add to that too, I think it's maybe similar to jobs or service where we get a couple things each time. So I know there were some new things with jobs now called projects and service that we wanted to include, but just didn't have the time to today. So that seemed like a lot of new stuff to me.
Oh, yeah.
And pretty cool stuff.
Sure did.
So Kim, I have a question for you. As someone who doesn't know too much about warehouse, I'll be honest, a lot of these things seemed like even if companies are already using warehousing, features that they can still start using right away and kind of with some of them, even you said you could go back and add the missing information like the item description. So do you see most of these as improvements for companies that are already utilizing warehousing, or are some of them kind of the initial configuration or setup of the warehousing?
I think they're both. There's some of them, definitely you can go back and start using the over receipt, the warehouse description, even, some of the like turning off or turning on some features. There's some people that might be doing directed pick and put away right now, and they really don't need it. But they needed it because they had one thing that they needed, which was like using put away codes. So you could actually go and turn some stuff off, make their processes more simplified, possibly, and still get that nice little add-on bonus that would give them like put away templates. So meaning it's going to kind of direct them to go put away things without having to have all those different steps that come with directed put away and pick.
Awesome. I also loved your view and presentation of the quick win. I think that's something that is so important to our customers when we look at it from their perspective. This is something you can start using. You can start using it right away, and it's going to make your life easier and less frustrating. So I like framing it in that way.
Did your team ever really get good training to understand how to use your business software? Do you think you could use more features of your software if you just knew how? Are you frustrated with inefficiency that never seems to get better? Do you suspect that there just has to be a better way, but you don't know what that is? We believe every company can benefit from increased efficiency and higher utilization of their software, and that it's possible to have fun while learning exactly how to do that. The experts at 𝗎𝗍 Strategies work with frustrated Business Central and NAV users who struggle to use their system and find the answers they need. We teach them to truly understand how the system can support their business processes to make immediate and lasting improvements. As a result, they get more done in less time, make better decisions, and even love their system. Please contact us at getyournewview.com to get started.